What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast, presented by BetMGM. Brendan Glasheen joining you in the host chair with Sean Zerillo and BJ Cunningham. Coming off the holiday weekend, we are back for 2 episodes this week, today and Friday. Be sure to subscribe and also give us a review over on the audio side as it pertains to the podcast. If you're watching on the Action Network YouTube channel, we would greatly appreciate a like on the video and also a subscription. It's free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So a shout out to our video team as well. They take our feed from the pod, and you can see our lovely faces coming off a holiday weekend. Fresh as lettuce, ready to break down a full slate today in Major League Baseball. Zerillo, why don't we get started? And we've got a couple things we want to hit on at the end of the show from a futures aspect. Same deal, though. We'll go best bets, find out if we're going to fade the public, underdog plays, a quick discussion, and then final bets. Zerillo, best bet for Tuesday out of the holiday break.
Key matchup here in the AL West. I believe the Rangers sitting a game behind the Astros and just a half game in front of the Toronto Blue Jays for the final AL wildcard spot. So it's very possible that the Texas Rangers might have made all of these moves, all of these free agent signings, and may end up missing the playoffs. The AL is very competitive right now, and a good team is going to end up missing. But in terms of Tuesday's matchup, I do like the Rangers as a side in both halves, and that's why they are my best bet, because it's the only side that I've shown value on both for the first 5 innings and the full game. Texas has been great against left-handed pitching this year. Top 3 against left-handed pitching. They've been good against righties as well, but their slightly better split is against lefties. You look at the Astros offensive splits over the past 30 days, they're the number 1 offensive team against left-handed pitching. I believe a 175 WRC plus for the Astros, who historically, the past 4 or 5 years or so have been one of the best teams against left-handed pitching. But drawing a righty tonight, they rank closer to league average against right-hand pitching on the season. And again, even over that past 30 days where they're absolutely smoking the ball and have looked like one of the best teams in baseball, they still rank about 6th against right-handed pitching. So there remains a noticeable split and a differential in the split between the Astros against lefties and against righties, whereas Texas has the superior offensive splits in this matchup going against Framber Valdez. The one note of concern is that Nathan Eovaldi, better strikeout minus walk rate, better expected ERA than Framber Valdez this season, but is coming back off of the IL after a forearm injury. So slight injury concerns to be worried about with Eovaldi. I thought he looked great prior to going on the IL. I had actually wondered if he had worked with Jacob deGrom at all on changing his slider grip, because his slider had looked so sharp and seemed to be just getting a little bit extra movement relative to previous years. So this was a career best Nathan Eovaldi that we had seen. Just a little bit worried that the arm may be permanently damaged and may require surgery. And the Rangers, trying to stay in the playoff race, just bringing him back to see what they can get before he potentially has surgery. So concerned about the injury, but beyond that, project Eovaldi as a better pitcher and give Texas the offensive splits advantage as well.
Do you have a number you'd bet them to? Or you might say
about minus 110 in each half, made the line closer to minus 120, minus 118 for both halves. So about minus 110 for Texas in either half.
Okay. And you've been consistent on Framber all year.
And Framber's always been one of my favorite guys, but the numbers are down this season. The expected ERA's gone over 4. I believe his strikeouts are up, but his ground ball rate is down relative to previous years. And that's the guy that he is. He needs those double plays after he walks guys to get out of innings. And Texas, obviously, a team who's seen him a bunch too. And there's that familiarity there as well, that I think certainly helps the offenses.
So, BJ, Zerillo brought this up. I'm not sure if you were with us last week, but Zerillo brought this up last week too. And we were discussing this division and if there is any particular way you might want to come back in on the Astros, because I know Zerillo had a strong stance on that when these teams met in a series a couple weeks back. But now Seattle's in the mix. And as Zerillo has mentioned, their pitching it can go up against anybody in the American League. It's whether or not their lineup can keep them afloat, at least down the stretch here and then into the postseason. But you're on the Rangers tonight too against the Houston Astros. A consensus best bet. Why might you like the Texas Rangers tonight?
I am, and it's funny enough, Sean. I actually projected the Rangers at minus 118 as well. So very funny. We have a consensus underdog and consensus projection here on this Tuesday. But yeah, Sean mentioned with Framber Valdez, the expected ERA is up. The ground ball rate is down 10% from last season, which means his sinker just hasn't been as effective as years past. Stuff plus rating of only 98 on that sinker. Expected weighted on base average allowed is 370. And, his other two secondary pitches, where his curveball's obviously been fantastic, but his cutter and his changeup have also seen a dip in the stuff plus and the expected weighted on base average allowed from last season. So that could be another reason why he's starting to struggle a little bit. And he's faced the Rangers twice this season. 11 earned runs allowed in those two starts. Four of his last 5 starts, his xFIP has been above 4.5, so he hasn't really been pitching that well as of late. Like Sean mentioned, Nathan Eovaldi coming off the IL is always a worry, when the guy's been on the IL for over 2 months. But he's been very, very good this season because, Brendan, he eliminated a problem that he had when he was in Boston. If you remember, he had a big-time home run problem in Boston. If you look through his home run per 9 rates, one year it was over 2, and then many years it was over 1.5. This season, going to a pitcher-friendly park, his home run per 9 rate is now only at 0.58. So that is a big improvement, and that's why you see his expected ERA sitting around 3.5. His best season with Boston in 2021, his home run per 9 rate was only 0.74. So it's basically just comes down to, can Eovaldi keep the ball in the park? He obviously has a ton of velocity, so the balls come off the bat a little harder when you're throwing harder. Like Sean mentioned, Houston's been red hot as of late. The one time they faced Eovaldi, he went 7 shutout innings against them. So I'm with Sean. Project the Rangers at -118. So I like them for the full game at plus 102. And I would play them to -110.
All right. And Seattle, by the way, is at Cincinnati today. So that is it's a very fascinating race coming down the stretch here. And we will get to the Reds later on in the program. Okay, the public today is big on the Dodgers, which Jesus Luzardo's pitching for the Marlins. That's the matchup here. Dodgers-Marlins. Dodgers getting 88% of the bets, 89% of the cash. And looking at BetMGM, this is reminding me of what, and this is more of I'm channeling my inner DeBundo here. When Blake Snell pitched against Jesus Luzardo a couple weeks ago, the Marlins were an underdog. Granted, they were on the road. The Marlins are home in this spot as dogs, plus 125. Total is low at 7.5 with Clayton Kershaw and Jesus Luzardo on the mound. Zerillo, are we willing to back the Marlins as a home dog with one of their best pitchers on the mound?
I am, but I also like the over. And Luzardo's numbers over the past month have really come close to major league average. He seems to be falling off, maybe wearing down a little bit as the season continues to move along. Or if you remember, he had some arm troubles in Oakland. That was ultimately why they gave up on him and traded him for Starling Marte, I believe, to Miami. The Marlins seemingly fixed him, but it does seem like there's some signs of concern in Luzardo's profile. But in the same respect, Clayton Kershaw, since he came back off of the IL, the numbers are woeful. 89 stuff plus, and I believe 3 starts now since coming off the IL. His last start against the Diamondbacks, walked the bases loaded in the first inning, got a double play to get out of it, was in trouble again in the second inning, got out of it. But 89 stuff plus, 89 location plus in that outing against the Diamondbacks was not anywhere near the best version of himself, either in terms of the stuff or the command leaving his hand. I think Clayton Kershaw is pitching injured right now. I think the Dodgers are trying to find something with him or get him back into form as they approach the playoffs. Very possible that Kershaw comes out today, back in form, and the stuff plus numbers jump right back up to where they were previously, and this ends up looking like a bad bet. But based on the form that he's shown since he came back off of the IL, Kershaw is significantly reduced. I mean, you convert the stuff plus and the location plus numbers to an actual expected ERA, Kershaw should be north of 6 over this month. I think he's been really lucky with the timing of the double plays that he's gotten and guys hitting it to outs, because the ball is just nowhere near the zone. It's a lot of 3-ball counts, and he doesn't seem fully healthy at the moment. So I like the Marlins on the money line, but I also like the over 7.5 over 7.5 in this matchup. Projected it closer to about 8.25. So 7.5 -110, even -115, probably okay. And maybe even my preferred bet on this game, but definitely think you should take a shot on the Marlins as well.
And we're not going to dive into what happened off the field, but the fact that Julio Urias might not be available here for the Dodgers, maybe that's why Dave Roberts and company doesn't really have a choice to have to use Kershaw here. Maybe they don't have that luxury.
I'd mentioned it recently that the Dodgers pitching scared me for the playoffs. Kershaw not being 100%, Urias obviously seeming like he will not be available, hopefully forever, because he seems like a POS. But yeah, I mean, the Dodgers come playoff time, it's going to be a lot on Bobby Miller's shoulders. And I love Bobby Miller, and he pitched great against the Braves the other day, but he was a lot nicer when he's your number 3 or number 4 starter, not when you need him to be pitching game 2. So, or even game 1, because Bobby Miller might be the Dodgers' best pitcher come playoff time. So, yeah, definitely take some sting out of the Dodgers' tails for their futures and kind of upgrades the Phillies for me a little bit as well. I think the Phillies and the Braves might end up being your pseudo NLCS come playoff time if the Dodgers pitching continues to trend the way it is.
Okay, BJ, share your feeling now on this matchup of Kershaw and Luzardo. Zerillo likes the Dolphins. Jesus, NFL does come back this week. The Marlins, not the Dolphins. The Marlins and the over. Where might you stand on this game?
No, they're both, aquatic animals. I mean, it's easy to mix them up.
Dolphins are.
Yeah, if anything, I would play the over, which, just echoing what Sean said about the 2 starting pitchers. And both these lineups are both really good against left-handed pitching. Dodgers 4th and weighted on base average against lefties. Marlins 11th. So good matchup for both offenses against 2 pitchers that are fading here down the stretch. So I'm with Sean, probably on the over.
Okay, now we can transition to underdogs. I do not think we have a consensus dog. Well, in a way we do, because the Rangers are underdogs today against the Astros. But Zerillo, underdog today on this full 15-game slate.
Not an official consensus dog, but I am on BJ's pick as well. And I'm curious if he's betting the Nationals money line, because we're both on the over 9 in the Nationals and Mets. BJ is going to get to that one in a bit too. So we're in agreement on a lot of plays today. But if I'm going to be betting on Patrick Corbin, he may as well be my favorite underdog of the day. Can't really put much between Corbin and Quintana at this stage of their respective careers. The Stuff Plus number is pretty dramatically bad for both. But I actually think there's evidence that that Patrick Corbin has pitched better than Quintana, especially of late. And I do think the line is just a little bit juiced towards the Mets. So the Nationals down to about plus 115 or better would be my biggest underdog edge, I believe, on the board right now, other than the Angels, who BJ is going to get to. So going to get to that one in a second, but also the over 9. And BJ is going to have that as one of his final best bets or final bets. But yeah, Nationals and over. And if you want to play it in a same game parlay, I would not blame you, because there does seem to be some amount of correlation there between these pitchers blowing up and the Nationals needing it to win a game.
Yeah. I like the Angels tonight.
That was phenomenal.
I listen. Dean Kramer has cost me a lot of money this season. I still think he's a very bad starting pitcher. His expected ERA is over 5. His expected weighted on base average allowed on every single pitch is north of 330. He's just a below average starting pitcher that has continually gotten lucky again and again and again. I mean, he's got 12 wins this season. Like, how is that possible? I'm not sure. But Reed Detmers, high variance guy, ton of strikeouts, a lot of walks, going up against this Orioles lineup that, quite frankly, is, they're sitting around 10th in weighted on base average against lefties, but the Angels are top 10 in Major League Baseball against righties. So I really don't think Dean Kramer, who has about a half run higher expected ERA than Reed Detmers, should be sitting as this significant of a favorite tonight. So the lovely Angels plus 136. Ohtani is still in the lineup. So Jesus, Angels plus 136.
Yeah, so I actually projected Ohtani out and still show value on the Angels and the over here. So keep an eye on Ohtani tonight, because he strained it oblique. It looked like in batting practice yesterday, ended up getting scratched from the lineup. The guy's superhuman. It seems like every time he gets hurt, he ends up being in the lineup the next day. He tore his UCL in that start, the start of a doubleheader, got pulled from that game and then was hitting in the second game. And I was like, why is this man in game 2? So just keep an eye on the Angels lineup. But I actually have Ohtani out and still see value on the Angels in the over here. So if he's going to be a bigger edge.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, I have the Angels at plus 105. So even with Ohtani out, I mean, you could take off 10, 15 cents even with that, but still projecting value.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get to final bets, we wanted to have a quick discussion on the National League Cy Young. And folks, this might not be an actionable segment, but it's more so to proceed with caution here down the stretch. Blake Snell is now your considerable favorite to win NL Cy Young at BetMGM minus 225. And in comes Justin Steele at plus 300. He has now leapfrogged Spencer Strider, Zach Gallen, two pitchers who blew up over the weekend. Zarilla, what would you urge people to do with these current odds? Is there anything there that people can consider?
So I think the biggest point of concern, and I think this award will ultimately be decided by next Wednesday, because Blake Snell faces the Houston Astros on Apple TV in Houston on Friday, and then at the Dodgers next Wednesday on ESPN. So not only does Snell have maybe his two most difficult matchups of the year, he also has them on national TV down the stretch here. And I think if he gets to those two starts unscathed, it's probably going to be his award. I think there's a chance he gets lit up in one or both of them and opens the door for Justin Steele or one of these other guys to walk through it. I've seen some buzz for Kodai Senga this week. I think Steele is the only guy who could potentially upset what looked like a pretty clear top trio between Gallen, Spencer Strider, and Blake Snell. There are warts in all of their profiles. Blake Snell has the low wins above replacement, a high whip, high walks. Strider has the higher ERA. Gallen seemingly has fallen off after getting lit up in a couple of starts because that ERA did balloon, but he is up there in wins above replacement. So they all have points of contention why they shouldn't get the award. As I've mentioned in the past, Blake Snell and Robbie Ray, the only two guys in the past 7 years who did not finish in the top 3 of their league in wins above replacement when they won the Cy Young, because they walk a lot of guys and they don't get through a ton of innings. But I believe both of them led their league in ERA in that season. And, you know, other than Justin Steele, Blake Snell has a pretty commanding lead in ERA over the rest of the National League. But you look at Justin Steele and he's right there in WAR. He's right there in ERA. And I honestly just think he needs Blake Snell to blow up once in the next 2 starts in order to potentially come even with him in terms of, you know, analysis for the award. And one other thing I'll mention, just going on Twitter, hunting around, looking around, any tweets about Blake Snell or who should be the NL Cy Young, the public opinion seems to want Justin Steele. I see so much support out there for people who love Justin Steele in the season he's having and then think he is deserving of being the NL Cy Young right now. So I'm not going to overlook that. Obviously, the public does not vote for the award, but it does seem like there's enough people talking about wanting Justin Steele to get it that I can't ignore it. And there's enough smoke there. So if I didn't have a bet on anybody right now, Justin Steele would be the man I'd target. He was 8-1 last week, though, prior to his last start, before Zach Gallen's last start, before Strider's last start. So seeing it come down from 8-1 to 3-1 in the past week, I believe he was as high as 50-1 a couple of weeks ago, doesn't really intrigue me to a significant degree, but definitely keep an eye on those 2 Blake Snell starts this week. And if you have a bet on Blake Snell for NL Cy Young, maybe consider betting some alternate props on the over on runs allowed in those games. Or, you know, there's other ways to hedge it beyond just betting Justin Steele to win Cy Young right now. You could bet against Blake Snell in those individual starts, bet props against them, bet under on strikeout totals. There's a lot of ways to go about it. So yes, it's something to keep an eye on over the next, I'd say, 8 days through next Wednesday with those 2 starts for Snell. But if you don't have a bet right now and you want value, I'd say it's Justin Steele.
If only they were facing each other. That would be fascinating.
Yeah.
This is reminding me of the Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, if they like played each other in March. But then I think, if I remember correctly, Jokic didn't play in one of the games. It's very different. I realize totally different market, totally different sport. But that whole discussion down the stretch of the NBA season, it's giving me those vibes with these national TV games.
Some Judge Ohtani at bats would have been fun last year to decide that thing, right? Yeah.
You got a thought there, BJ, on this? Any belief in Justin Steele at that price?
Well, what's benefiting Justin Steele here is if you look at what Huey's projected to face going forward, it's going to be the Diamondbacks at home, then the Rockies, and then potentially the Rockies again. And then they finish out with the Braves to end the season. I don't know if he's going to pitch in those final 3 games. So with all of those games,
Braves will play starters.
That's true. I believe one of the games against the Rockies will be at home, and then one will be on the road in Coors Field, which obviously is not good for him. But the price is too short for me to play Steele right now. I think it's just it's one of those things you have to, if you have tickets on Steele or Snell, you know, I would just hold them and just wait and see what happens. You know, you may. It's interesting, you know, like Sean said, if Snell gets blown up in his next start, I think the odds are going to get very, very interesting, because we saw this with Strider. Like, Strider was the overwhelming favorite for a while there, and then he went out and got blown up, and then he was 10-1. So it can change in a dime here, this race. So it's been a fascinating race all season long, though, I got to say. I feel like every single day I'm going and checking who's the favorite to be the NL Cy Young. And one day it's Gallons 2-1, then one day it's Strider, then next day it's Snell, and now Snell is kind of separating himself from the pack, but things can change on a dime here.
Okay, if Justin Steele takes advantage, he continues to pitch how he pitches, it will be a fascinating race. I can tell you, Justin Steele, he strikes me as someone who has been using Caldera Labs, the base layer product. I tell you, the base layer, folks, it's your daily moisturizer to hydrate your skin and jumpstart your day full of confidence. And that man, Justin Steele, is pitching with confidence. And if you take care of your skin, if you make skincare your priority, you'll have a full day of confidence as well. Caldera Lab creates high-performance men's skincare products, and the regimen leads off their product lineup, a twice-a-day routine to transform your skin. We have a special offer for Caldera Lab here with the Action Network, also Payoff Pitch. If you use the code PITCH, PITCH, at calderalab.com, you can get 20% off right now. That's PITCH. Insert that promo code at Caldera Lab, CALDERA lab.com, and you get 20% off right now. On to final bets before we go. Zerillo, I know you touched on a few of these, or you hinted that you'd touch on some of these, and there's some crossover between you and BJ. What else you have for this Tuesday?
Yeah, pretty big card for today. The Guardians to minus 102, and also the over in that matchup. The Pirates to plus 150, the Reds to plus 135, Alex Faedo and the Tigers to plus 200, the Giants to plus 120, assuming Sean Manaea is going to get the bulk of that game. We talked about the Angels down to plus 120 and also the over. The Padres to minus 106, who I believe BJ also likes, and then the Oakland A's down to plus 160 with the under in that matchup. And so BJ and I definitely have some overlap today, which I always like to see. And I don't believe he has a bet on his card that I didn't also make. So definitely hope BJ has a good day, because that means I did too.
You know, Sean, I'm glad to hear that you're on the Giants, because I stared at that last night for a long time. Giants offense has been so bad, and I just am sitting here like, I don't know if I can do it. So I'll probably end up betting the Giants after we get off recording here. But no, I like the Mets and Nationals over 9 with these two starting pitchers on the mound. Patrick Corbin may have been pitching a little bit better, but his expected area is still over 6 this season. So it's always good to take it over with, especially the Nationals, who are also good against left-handed pitching. So good matchup for them there. With you on the Tigers at plus 210. Faedo, his expected ERA is about a full run lower than his actual ERA. Cole been a little bit lucky this season. A little lucky, a little over a 3.5 expected ERA. So the gap between these two starting pitchers really isn't that wide comparatively. And yes, the Padres at minus 110 is the best price you can find right now. Avila is an interesting case. You know, he's been in the bullpen for a while. Came in and made a couple starts. His last 2 starts have been really, really bad. But if you look at his xFIP through his 3 starts this season, just as a starter, it's 3.7. So he's been getting a little unlucky going up against Michael Lorenzen, who's also a negative regression candidate. So with Sean on a lot of these bets on the slate as well.
Yeah, I was of the belief, you guys weren't here last Friday because we had others on based on our schedule. And I was of the belief that we shouldn't talk about the Padres anymore. But if it's a case to fade the Phillies, because this 88.5, 89.5 win total is going to be very sweaty here coming down the stretch. So
yeah, I think they basically just need to go like 2 games over 500 to clear it at this point.
I think at this point now it's just 500. They got to go 13-13 or something like that.
And even though they have a bunch of games left against the Braves are not going to be in a position where they need to win those games. So yes, it is definitely concerning. Their schedule looks a bit more difficult than it might actually play out. So probably dead, but who knows? And the NL wildcard race is still very interesting as well. We've got a number of teams.
The Cubs have made it. The Cubs have made it now. So the Cubs have made it, Zerillo, where now the Phillies might have to kind of care so they can keep that top wildcard spot.
And
the Cubs might
even
win
the
the Central
race either. I mean, we've been waiting for the Brewers collapse all season long. The underlying numbers for Corbin Burns are still a bit concerning. Freddie Peralta's been pitching better. Brandon Woodruff's been great, but if Burns isn't 100% and their 4 and 5 guys are still a bit shaky, I could see the Brewers collapsing down the stretch here. One of these teams is going to collapse. The Rangers, the Brewers, the Astros. I don't know who it's going to be, but one of these teams is good, and one of these teams is not going to make the playoffs. So there's going to be one or two odd teams out that you're going to be surprised by.
And the final
Dakota
series for the Cubs is against the Brewers to finish out the season as well,
Wow.
which could be incredible.
Especially if they're a game out at that point, 2 games out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the Phillies finish with the Mets twice and the Pirates. I think those are their final 10 games.
And Pete Alonso's back to hitting home runs. Pete Alonso's only a few off the league lead. He looks fully healthy again. So the Mets are hitting the ball. They're not easy outs anymore. The Yankees are not easy outs anymore. The Yankees are hitting the ball as well as they have all season. So yeah, these New York teams, even though they were crappy all season, maybe they'll play spoiler here too in September.
All righty, that'll do it. You can find Zerillo and BJ Cunningham in the free-to-download, award-winning Action Network app. Please, again, leave that 5-star rating on the pod and a review. No matter how you feel about the program, we'd like to hear from you as the regular season winds down. We return. Payoff Pitch returns on Friday. For Sean Zerillo, BJ Cunningham, Brendan Glasheen, thanks for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. We'll talk to you again at the end of the week. See ya.